Right, right. Now I gotta ask you that VC was like, hey, I want you to get 200 signups, or was it 100 and you end up getting 1,200?
It was
Um,
it was 100, unfortunately, but you know.
yeah. But why did they say no? Even though you crushed their mark and you weren't even doing any type of marketing at that time, right?
No, they came back and said that user base was too small. Uh, but really, as a minority founder, the game is different for us. You know, the bar is often moved, and we're often told to. The bar is often moved for us, and you're often told to do one thing, and then you hit that milestone, that mark, and then it's like, oh, we'll go do another milestone, another mark before we get you your
Right.
investment. And that's really what happened. But I mean, it sucks at the time, you know, for any entrepreneur out there that's trying to raise funds. You know, you're not the only one. You know, minorities get less than 3% of the total funds
Yeah.
altogether. I think, you know, last year it's
Yeah.
like 147 billion that went into investment, and minorities got less than 2% of that. So, you know, it sucks, but you know, you just got to stay stay the course. You know you have a good product, and um, usually if you have more than 10 people, or at least 10 people that you don't know that are complete strangers that say, hey, I think you're onto something, you know, you have something, and you just keep building towards that.
Yeah, like and that's one thing when I have ideas too, like, and when I'm trying stuff out, I usually go to strangers that I don't know, because there's no emotional attachment to me, right? And they're going to give me real feedback. And if a
Yeah,
stranger, it's a good chance that it's a good indication. It's not always, but it's a good indication you're working on something that's good.
right. I think, you know, that there's something to be said. Like, I didn't really think I had a potential, you know, successful company until strangers told me that. When strangers like, hey, I think this is going to be huge, that's when you know you might be onto something. And outside of that, I would say if you have a tough friend, like, you know, I would consider you to be a tough friend that's going to be honest with you, that's going to be blunt. You know, those are the people you want to go to, because, you know, they're not going to sugarcoat it and make you think that your idea is so wonderful. They're going to tell you like, no, this is horrible. You know, but if your friends can look through the destiny. Again, you're launching a product before, as a minority, you have no choice but to launch a product before you know that it's ready. So
Right.
there's going to be issues, there's going to be bugs, and probably more than what would happen if you actually had the necessary resources to launch a product. But if people are able to see past those bugs and those issues to the bigger vision and say, hey, if you get the resources you need, this will be great. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably onto something. I think that's really what happened with Home Lending Pal, is that, you know, this past year has been rough, but people could see the vision of what we were trying to do and the passion about that, solving that problem, you know, and addressing that need. And that's kind of where, you know, it kind of took off for us.
Right, right. So I got to go back to it. Like, how do you navigate the VC world and dealing with, this moving target or whatever, and also, I guess, being a Black tech co-founder, right? Like, how do you deal with those? Like, what are some things you've done to boost your, I guess, your success rate? But how do you actually navigate that world?
Um, so one, it's tough, you know, even personally, you know, I was in Miami. I battled with depression. You know, I battled with, you know, imposter syndrome, not thinking I was good enough. So it's going to happen. And
Right.
we talk about rejection that happens within the VC world. It does. But the thing we don't talk about is the type of rejection. You know, as a minority, as a woman, the rejection isn't just your normal, hey, this isn't a good idea, that can't make me money. The rejection usually comes in personal formats, personal attacks to you directly. And in many cases, it's based on scenarios that have nothing to do with you. Um, so I guess to put that into perspective, I read an article today that talked about the lady that founded Theranos, that she was basically a fraud, but you know, she raised like $800 million, and it all came out that she was a fraud for it, and the company was a fraud. But yet, women founders are still being penalized because of what she did. That has nothing to do with me. I don't
Are you
know
talking
her.
about? Are you talking about
Elizabeth,
Thanos?
Elizabeth Holmes is her name, and they're actually making a movie about her.
The
Um,
she the blood testing. You
Yeah, it's
talking
like the
about her?
blood testing app. Yeah, it was the blood testing app that she said that, you know, it could, with a single drop of blood, it could identify any uh, I think any issue, or any, you know, issue that you had from a health standpoint, and it just didn't work. But I think there's personal attacks there, but I think the biggest thing is, continuing to take shots, and we're going to have to take a lot. If another founder, if a white founder says it takes them 100, be prepared for it to take you 200-300 founders, or to pitches for you to actually get something. But more importantly, when you pitch, have your pitch solid, have the pitch deck look good. But more importantly, spend the money to have a fractional CFO come in and help you build your financial forecast and your pro forma. I've seen and heard so many different pitches, even for myself. The pitch went really well, but when you got to the numbers didn't make sense. And to be able to say, oh, well, I hired a fractional CFO, and the numbers still might not make sense, but they're well thought out to a point where I think that I can justify this, is really very important as a minority founder. And I think that's really where we miss that for the first part. And I think the second part is that I'm all for Black power, for Black empowerment, but if you want to be like a white founder and raise funds like a white founder, go to the ones that have done what you're trying to do and see if they'll mentor you. The two guys that showed me how to raise money pre-revenue, one of them raised $30 million and the other one raised $40 million. So I was willing to kind of put my pride and ego to the side and say, teach me your ways. And it really comes down to the ability to tell a story, not of where you are. I think we get so caught in telling where the product is. Here I have this many users, I have, this many, making this much revenue, etc. But in the early days, it's about telling the story, getting people to buy into that story of what you want to build, and that you are capable of building it. It was funny that when I actually closed my rounds, I never had any slides that were focused on the market. I mean, people knew that what I was doing was a big market. And I never had any slides that focused on my competitors, because I don't want you focused on my competitors. I'm doing something that's never been done before, so focus on me. You know what I mean? But when they ask about that stuff, I mean, that's not to say don't know that stuff. Like know it in the back of your mind.
That's more in the QA part anyway. You win.
Like know it in the QA part. Like know your numbers, know everything in the QA part. But don't make that I hate when people come out, especially entrepreneurs, come out and say, oh well, I am trying to be the Airbnb of this. Like, nah, don't start with that. Wait for the Q&A to tell them that, but tell them who you are and you're trying to be you. You know what I mean? And I think that works a lot better, because in that sense, you're not getting them to think that there's something else out there that's already doing what you're doing.
Yeah,